Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I want to talk about my reading journey and how it might help you. This is definitely going to be more of just a kind of talking, conversational sort of video. I don't want to talk about like any books in particular. I really just want to talk about how I went from reading under one book a month in 2019 to now being on track to read 72 books this year, how I made reading enjoyable for myself again, and maybe apply that into some kind of not quick tips and tricks, but things that you can apply to your own reading that might be helpful. Most of my audience is already readers, but maybe this would be a good space for us to just discuss how we make reading an enjoyable hobby for ourselves, how we can help others in our life love reading as much as we do. I don't know, like I said, I've just been kind of ruminating on this topic and I'd really like to just get some thoughts out there. So before we jump into it, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. So I think my kind of reading story is very reminiscent of a lot of people here on Booktube, and I think just a lot of readers in general. I was a voracious reader growing up. Elementary school, middle school, high school, just reading all the time. In high school, reading big chunky books like all the time. And then in college, very much dropping off on that, spending a lot more time reading big chunky textbooks and not really reading for fun, getting very burnt out on reading. And then once I graduated college, I really wanted to try to get back into reading, but found myself stumbling and not really reading that much. And now that I'm reading exponentially more than I was a couple years ago, I've thought back on why I've been able to make as much progress as I have over the past couple years and found ways to express those in a way that hopefully makes sense to other people. So the first point I really want to talk about and get into is making reading a hobby, like really hobifying your reading. There were other hobbies besides reading that I had managed to keep up with through college and into postgrad. I think really understanding, if you're not currently a reader, understanding your current hobbies that you already enjoy and what you enjoy about them could help you figure out how to get reading more engrossed into your life. And I think also finding out what reading advice is applicable to you. Because I know when I first started trying to get back into reading, the big thing was to treat reading like your self-care, you know? You do your skincare, you do your bubble bath, you know, reading is also a form of self-care. But for me, I really wasn't that big into self-care. I'm still not that big. Self-care feels a little luxurious to me. I mean, it is important, but it made me feel almost bad about reading. Like, self-care feels very unproductive in my mind. And so, knowing that I'm not big into self-care, I shouldn't think about reading as self-care. I should think about reading in the aspects I do about my other hobbies, where it's something that I enjoy and I am an active participant in. So, to give you a little bit better example of how I would break that down, my personal hobbies, especially when I started reading, were dirt bike riding, skiing, and drinking. So I promise this will all come together. This will all make sense. When I really think about what I enjoy about those three hobbies, the first of which is the social aspect. I have dirt biking friends, I have skiing friends, I have my drinking friends. All three of those activities are very social things for me. Like, I don't really go dirt bike riding, skiing, or drinking by myself. I do those with other people. So making sure I'm really tapping into those social aspects of reading was something that really helped me. And then the other part of those hobbies was buying stuff for them. I, love buying gear and kit for my dirt bike and my skiing. I loved getting like merch from like the different breweries and wineries that I enjoyed. So, I mean, there's the capitalist aspect of my hobbies that I also really enjoyed. So also tying that into reading helped it make it feel like more of a hobby that I could be actively engaged in. Pedaling back a little bit back to the social aspect of reading and how I kind of applied it. I obviously started this Booktube channel, and I think just the book internet in general can be a really great aspect if you are looking for that social aspect of reading. Book Twitter is a blast. Tons of great material on book Instagram as far as engaging with people and getting recommendations. Obviously, Book Talk has taken off in a huge way that no one had been anticipating. So Booktube definitely probably one of the more work-intensive aspects of those book social medias or book internet, but I think any of them could be a really great way to kind of get back into reading and really make it feel like it's a social club that you can be a part of. Obviously, there's book clubs, both online and in person. I think those are both like great ways to not force you to read, but there's an expectation there that you read the book, and that might help give you a little bit of motivation to get started. And then of course there are buddy reads. If you just have a friend in your life that's also trying to get back into reading or is already a reader, being able to read along with someone can make the experience so much more enjoyable and just fun. So jumping over to my other point, buying things is something I have really enjoyed about any hobby I've taken up. I love buying all the stuff. You can see behind me, I got many books. I got fancy bookshelves. I just bought another bookshelf. Got all this little decorations and stuff for my bookshelf. I have book lights. I have an e-reader. I like buying things. And is that great for my finances and my budget? No. But it did help me get back into reading. So if you are looking to get back into reading, or if you're just trying to make reading feel more engaging and more like a hobby to you, I would definitely recommend that you take a look at your current hobbies, really parse apart the reasons as to why you enjoy them. Like I said, if you do enjoy, skincare, self-care, bubble bath sort of situation, a great way to incorporate reading into that would be creating kind of a self-care routine around it. Creating a cozy book nook area, pouring yourself a glass of wine or tea or whatever while you read, really make it feel special. That just didn't work for me. So it's really important, I guess, in this phase that you know what you like, make reading enjoyable, particularly to you. I think the next kind of topic that I think could be interesting to discuss would be visualizing progress. Being able to see improvement is really motivating to a lot of people. If it's not motivating to you, feel free to just skip past this section entirely. But I know for me, being able to see progress over years, over months, over weeks can be hugely motivating. I think a perfect place to start is an app like Storygraph, where you can put in your books, when you started them, when you finished them. You can even track your progress within the book itself. So you can put in like what page you're at on what day, and you'll get a little progress bar. What Storygraph does really well is make really incredible graphs with cool data, and they just have a lot of great ideas for keeping track of statistics of your reading. For me, I'm a bit of a crazy person and I love statistics. So this was another way for me to kind of tailor my reading experience to myself, but I have made my own spreadsheet where I keep track of a bunch of different stuff, make my own graphs, have a fancy Gantt chart, all sorts of stuff going on in my own spreadsheet, and it just makes it feel really cool at the end of the year when I can go back and see where I started in 2019 and where I'm at currently. That was really helpful for me personally. And then I think something else that can be really motivating for a lot of people is all these incredible like bullet journal spreads. Like something that comes to my mind particularly is Ruby from Ruby Red. She does these beautiful art spreads inspired by the books that she reads in her reading journal at the end of every month, and it's so cool. And if you are like a creative person, that could definitely be very motivating to be able to engage in both your creative aspect once you're done reading. I have a digital bullet journal where I just have like a little habit tracker, and if I like read, I get to put a little sticker in the habit, and that's like exciting for me. So yeah, like I mentioned, this is just kind of another good step where you can incorporate and really tailor your reading experience to yourself. If you do want to make it a little more analytical with some fancy spreadsheets or something like Storygraph, or if you want to be a little more creative with it like Ruby and her beautiful bullet journal spreads, I just think it's another kind of easy way to motivate yourself. And then finally, the last topic I want to hit on this is you really have to treat reading stamina like a muscle. This is something that Colorless Wonder, is that his channel name? But he also did a video on this same topic of how to read more, and he really dove into, you know, reading stamina and how to increase your reading stamina. And if you are into, you know, working out or weightlifting or running or anything like that, I think it's really helpful to visualize your reading stamina in the same way. I think a lot of us experienced, you know, in high school we could come back from school, sit down, pop open Twilight and read that 800-page sucker in like a day. And that is not something that I could do back in 2019 when I first started reading again. I was lucky to get 2 pages in before I was like pulling out my phone and scrolling Twitter or something. If you are starting to get back into reading again, it's really important to keep this in mind that you're basically starting from ground zero. You're squatting just the bar right now. And it's important not to make the gym newbie mistake of trying to go too hard too fast and burn yourself out. As a personal example, back in 2019, I decided I was going to read, where is it? East of Eden, which is an incredible book, and I'm glad I read it, but it took me 3 months to get through this sucker because it is dense biblical allegory. Like, I was trying to bench press, you know, 100 pounds, having not picked up anything in years. So I think it's important to start with the correct expectations, knowing that you're not going to start off reading 70 books the first year you try to get back into it, but just really trying to jump into books you know you enjoy and really capture that spark back for reading. So start off with stuff you enjoyed as a kid. You know, if you enjoyed Greek mythology books like I did, Percy Jackson, maybe try some of the new adult Greek retellings. If you enjoyed, you know, kind of the paranormal Twilight stuff, jump into some of the more current renditions of that, like the ACOTAR series or Sarah J. Maas in general, where it's kind of that romance fantasy vibe. Or just reread the books you loved as a kid. That can work too. But definitely don't feel like just because you're an adult you need to jump into heavy nonfiction or the classics or whatever else. I mean, if that's what you enjoy, then great, read what you love. But don't feel like that's what you have to read because you're an adult now. Go ahead and read the, you know, the brainless romances, the silly spy thrillers. Those are just as valid, and this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a hobby. But to kind of switch gears on you, if you really are trying to build that muscle, the biggest thing is consistency. Force yourself to read every day. And I know that sounds bad when I say I'm trying to make reading fun, but if you really want to get your reading stamina back up, you have to read every single day. So set aside some time. Mine is right before bed. I read every single night before I go to sleep, without fail. If it's 1 page, that's fine, but I read every single night before I go to sleep. And for me, that also works because it keeps me from like scrolling on my phone before bed. Set aside some time and declare that your reading time, whether that's right before bed, whether that's right when you get up in the morning, right when you get back from work, you know, right after dinner before you clean up the kitchen, whatever works for you. But making sure you have that time set aside for yourself and forcing yourself to read at least 1 page will do wonders for building up that reading stamina and just really creating a habit around it. And you will find yourself just naturally progressing into reading longer and longer and wanting to pick up your book more and more. It's like I said, it's just like working out. Like the more you work out, the more you go to the gym, the more kind of addicted you become to it. And then once it becomes kind of that habit, I have found that I really just enjoy the act of reading now, and it doesn't really so much matter the content of what I'm reading. I find myself being drawn towards some of those, you know, heavy-hitting memoirs or, you know, classics or whatever else, because I really just want to be able to sit down and enjoy the act of reading, even if the content isn't necessarily exactly what I would be drawn towards. I mean, I still love picking up my less hard-hitting books, but just having that consistency and habit around reading and creating a hobby around the act of reading itself, I think can really go a long ways into increasing your capacity to read a lot more books in a year. So I think I have blathered on enough about this topic. Please give me your thoughts below on any of the 3 kind of sections of this video: hobbyifying it, visualizing your progress, and increasing your reading stamina. And thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.